Rabbi Dr. Natan Slifkin is with us live via telephone with all the attention that the king of the jungle is getting these days. I do remind you that Rabbi Slifkin's book, The Lions of Zion, Biblical Natural History and the Significance of Israel, is now available on Amazon. You could literally search his name, Natan Slifkin, and you'll get to the book, The Lions of Zion. We're actually going to be talking about lions in just a moment because many of you are, and Rabbi Dr. Natan Slifkin is, of course, the founder of the Biblical Museum of Natural History in Israel. And many of you are likely aware of the fact that the name of the operation that Israel's in right now against Iran is called Shagat Ha'ari, Operation Roaring Lion. Rabbi Dr. Natan Slifkin, a pleasure to welcome you back to JM in the AM.
Hi, it's great to be back on with you.
So this was an interesting choice of names, huh?
Well, yes, it's, as I explained in my book, the lion is mentioned in Tanakh more than every other animal put together. And that's because they were a basic feature of life in Israel. Until 800 years ago, you had lions living wild in Israel. And as the king of beasts, they became the symbol of Malchut, of royalty, but the symbol of the tribe of Yehuda. Right. And since, the kingdom split and we're all basically Yehudim, descendants of Judah, so the lion really became a metaphor for the Jewish people and for Israel as a whole, the state of Israel as a whole.
The seal of the state of Israel is the coat of arms has a lion on it, right?
Yeah. But I have to tell you, so Roaring Lion is, expressing how our soldiers in the IDF are, encompassing this power of the lion. For the rest of us who are not involved in that mitzvah, dealing with all the sleepless nights caused by the missiles. So, it occurred to me that we're emulating another aspect of lions. Lions try to sleep for 18 hours a day.
Wow.
And that's what the rest of us are doing.
I thought you were going to. I thought you were going to.
For the IDF, it's Operation Roaring Lion, and for the rest of us, it's Operation Snoring Lion.
Yeah, or Yawning Lion, because you ever see
Yawning Lion?
I'm sure you've seen what it looks like when a lion yawns. It's pretty effective.
Oh, yeah.
It's a pretty effective scene. Rabbi Slifkin is with us live via telephone from Israel. We'll get to the seriousness of this war in a moment, but we're talking about the name. I don't have in front of me, I'm sure we could do the research, I don't have in front of me the name of every operation that Israel's been involved with in the last 77 years. But just as you cited that in our holy books, the lion is the most cited animal, do you think that the lion is generally leaned on when it comes to names of operations as well, or this is an aberration?
Good question. I'm not familiar with previous one. Of course, the first Iran war last year was called the Rising Lion.
Right.
Right. That's a phrase from Parashat Balak.
Right.
But previous operations before that, I don't know.
Well,
I do not
certainly
know.
Then in this era, we could say it's dominated by the lion. That's for sure.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And it's really hard. And I wonder if you ever go through this because you're so involved in the animal kingdom. Maybe it doesn't affect you as much, but it is odd for us to sit here and consider, especially those of us who are regular visitors to Israel, please God. It is hard for us to consider that at one time they were roaming the Holy Land, and just 800 years ago they'd be a common sight there. Does that I don't know. Does that surprise you, or do you sometimes have your troubles wrapping your head around that?
Well, I have a different surprise. I meet people who are really, knowledgeable experts, teachers of Tanakh and of Torah. And when I tell them that lions used to live wild in Israel, they're shocked. And I'm like, well, why are you shocked? Why do you think the Torah is speaking about them so much? It's because they were here.
They were so common. And you've pointed this out to us on numerous occasions about the animals that had a tremendous familiarity to the Holy Land and to the Torah era, so to speak. I know we're always in the Torah era, but you know what I mean. I mean, at the time of Matan Torah.
Yeah, Tanakh era, the Tanakh era, right? Of course, bears and crocodiles and leopards, all these things, yeah.
And today, when it comes to that area of the world, or maybe specifically Israel, you could enlighten me. It's amazing that they're not to be seen for, hundreds of miles.
Yeah. Well, that's because it became very densely populated. And, Israel doesn't have these vast tracts of wilderness like America or Africa has.
Right.
So the animals quickly, became impossible for them to survive.
What's the opposite, Rabbi Slifkin? If the lion was there up until 800 years ago and now essentially never, ever seen, obviously, in that part of the world, what's the opposite? What's an animal that is so common in Israel today, or more common, I should say? I don't know if anything is so common. More common in Israel today, and, hundreds of years ago, you never would have seen it in that area.
Oh, so a great example of that would be we have two birds that were imported for the pet trade and escaped and are now everywhere, the myna and the ringneck parakeet, and they are absolutely everywhere.
Literally, if I'm walking in the streets of Jerusalem and there's a bird going in and out of a tree, It's likely one of those.
Yeah, yes.
So
invasive species. It's a big problem because they can really mess up the ecosystem. They can cause all kinds of agricultural damage. So Israel has very strict laws now about what kind of animals you're allowed to import into the country. They don't want people importing animals that, if they escape, are going to cause all kinds of problems. So at the museum, every so often, we get a visit from the Nature Authority bringing us animals that they've confiscated, which they don't want to kill, but they don't want to, risk the possibility these will end up spreading in the wild, so they bring them to us. We have a monstrous snapping turtle.
That's a good example of a recent one?
Yeah, a huge snapping turtle, a very powerful, vicious animal. Definitely not something you want to have loose on the Kinneret or the Yarkon River. Illegal to import them into Israel. But somebody smuggled one in, so they brought it to us.
What was your most recent encounter? It's Friday morning. I have an excuse if I'm too exhausted to remember. What was your most recent encounter? Was it with a whale? Was it? Am I right?
The whale, yeah, that was extraordinary. That was just before the war started. That I find out that a sperm whale was beached near Ashkelon. So I zoomed down there because they were going to bury it. So I zoomed down there, dived, went into the ocean fully clothed. I didn't have a chance to get a bathing suit or anything. And it was this big sperm whale. It was about 45 feet long.
Wow.
They get much bigger than that. They can get to be 70 feet long. And it's not cause of death was unclear, but just really astonishing to see it. Very interesting because actually, in the past the last few weeks, we've been speaking about the Mishkan. And of course, in the Mishkan, they have the Ketoret.
Right.
So what the incense? So what goes into the Ketoret? So there's a Rabbi Natan, not me, Rabbi Natan Habavli, in Pitam HaKetoret, who said they used Kippat HaYarden was one of the ingredients of the Ketoret. Now, what's this Kippat HaYarden? So according to one view, it's a substance called ambergris. That is something that comes out of a sperm whale. Sperm whales eat squid. And squid are kind of soft and chewy, but they have this very hard beak. So when the sperm whale eats the squid, in order for that sharp, hard beak not to damage its insides, the sperm whale secretes this waxy substance to encase the beak, which then ends up coming out of the whale. And that substance is very, very fragrant, used for perfumes for many thousands of years. Wow. Very expensive, valuable substance. Wow. So there's one view that's one of the ingredients of the Ketoret.
Unbelievable. So the authorities in Israel, when a discovery like that is made, they all know at this point that you're the go-to guy. They have to call you.
Yeah, I got my contacts there, yeah.
I would imagine so. Rabbi Dr. Natan Slifkin's with us. Do you adjust your exhibits depending on the news of the day? Like, is the lion now front and center at your museum because the war is named for him?
Well, we try, in the tour we give it more prominence, depending on what's going on. Actually, we just added an interesting thing. We added a memorial plaque in the museum. Something I discovered very interesting. You know the phrase, me'arayot gaveru, minisharim kalu, me'arayot gaveru, right? Lighter than the nesher, which is the griffin vulture, sometimes mistranslated as an eagle, more powerful than lions. So that's a phrase which people will recognize from Av HaRachmim. Right, it's the prayer we say before Musaf.
Correct. Not tomorrow.
Which was instituted.
Not tomorrow, but generally, right.
Not tomorrow, right. And that was instituted after the Crusades, right? After the massacres of the Crusades. Mm-hmm. Now, but that phrase talking about how they were more powerful than lions actually comes from Tanakh. It comes from the eulogy that King David gives for Shaul and Yonatan.
Wow.
Now, what's interesting is that when King David, when David HaMelech is speaking about Shaul and Yonatan and talking about how they were lighter than the Nesher and stronger than the lions, he's talking about their military prowess, right? Their physical strength, their agility. You look at all the pasukim there and the commentaries, he's very clearly talking about their military prowess. Now, when you got to the Crusades, so the Jews who were massacred in the Crusades, they weren't killed fighting, right? They were just slaughtered by the Crusaders. So the author of Harachimim had to change that phrase a bit, and he added afterwards that they were stronger than lions, la'asot utzon konam, right, to do the will of their creator, right, taking it to refer to a spiritual strength, rather than a physical strength, because the physical strength just wasn't relevant in that context.
Right.
But now, thousands of years later, when we have Eretz Yisrael back, and now the Jews have sovereignty again, and we have to defend ourselves against our enemies. So now again, it's the military strength, it's the physical strength of the lion that we need to emulate. So we did a memorial for the soldiers who fought, and we quoted that that pasuk, and it's just interesting how we're now, after thousands of years after David HaMelech coined that phrase, speaking about the physical attributes of the lion, it switched to being a spiritual strength, and now we can switch it back and use it in its original context.
Unbelievable. Rabbi Slifkin is with us from Israel. Were you able to keep the museum open? Are people coming over the last 2 weeks, or there's great restrictions?
Well, the first week we had to close completely. Right now, we've been able to partially reopen. There's restrictions because you can only, you have a maximum of 50 people, and it's also limited by the size of the mamad, of the safe room.
Right.
So we can fit about 30 people in our safe room. We have 10 staff, so we're limited to about 20 visitors at a time. So we have some people coming. They're very appreciative because people, are desperate to get out.
Yeah, they need things to do. And give us your impressions of what's going on, because you're always outspoken for good reason about the incredible commitment of those who serve in the IDF. And you mentioned, of course, how the majority of people in Israel obviously are running back and forth to the Ma'amad, to the shelters, etc. We are sitting on the sidelines while you're on the front lines. What can you tell us about the last couple of weeks?
I mean, I'm on the front lines in terms of missiles. Bet Shemesh, unfortunately, we had 3 impacts around here. One very tragically resulting in 9 people being killed. But I'm not in that sense. Maybe we're on the front lines, but obviously, people really on the front lines doing the sacrifice of the soldiers, including my son. They just called up another 100,000 reservists. There were already 50,000 additional reservists, beyond the standing forces. Right. They called up 50,000. There were still 50,000 extra called up because of the residue of October 7th, and then they just called up another 100,000. So that's 150,000 reservists. It's just the commitment people have is just astonishing. I just read that in Israel has a milk bank from nursing mothers to provide milk for babies whose mothers have been called up.
Unbelievable. To
reserve duty. Isn't that unbelievable? That because of the manpower shortage, there's nursing mothers being called up to reserve duty, and they have to provide milk for their babies.
Unbelievable. Rabbi Dr. Natan Slifkin, his book, The Lions of Zion, Biblical Natural History and the Significance of Israel, is available now on Amazon. You can literally search his name, Rabbi Natan Slifkin, Slifkin, and get the book. We highly recommend it. We had a nice conversation about the book when it was released. And the Shagat Ha'ari, the name of this operation Israel's in, is the Roar of the Lion. And Rabbi Slifkin, in conclusion, I wonder, from your perspective, I don't know if you've ever measured this. I don't know if you have decibel measuring equipment, but do we assume the roar of the lion is the loudest sound of an animal in the animal kingdom? I mean, if a a wolf or a dog would be at their highest volume, would they beat the lion at that? Where does the roar of the lion rank?
I don't know statistics. I can tell you that I have heard lions roar in Africa, and the sound travels very, very far.
And you would suspect even further than a dog or a wolf or any of those.
Oh yes, I would definitely think so. Although I will tell you that the furthest traveling sound comes from a whale. Whales can actually communicate with other whales on the other side of the world. That's how far their calls travel.
And that's specifically because they're in water, or they just have that ability?
Because the frequency, because it's so low.
Unbelievable.
It takes, the message can travel for miles. But I just want to mention one more thing, because we've got Pesach coming up.
Yeah.
So locusts, we have our line of kosher locusts,
Right.
which are always popular for Pesach. Crunchy in the outside and a chewy center.
Are they a big hit for Shulchan Aruch? Is that?
Oh yeah, yeah. People love them. I mean, not everybody. Look. Some people eat them. Some people are like, they don't want to eat them, but they want them as a talking point.
Right.
One year we sent them out to all our donors, and most people were very, very appreciative. Just one person said, how much do I have to donate to the museum for you not to send me a jar of locusts? Anyway, we have some available for shipping in the U.S., but if people want to buy them, then it's not on Amazon. They'll have to go to the museum website for that, biblicalnaturalhistory.org.
And if they want
if you do a search online for kosher locusts, you'll find us.
And if they want to donate to the museum and keep it going, that would be the same website, correct?
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Kol hakavod, Rabbi Slifkin. Always a delight. Have a wonderful Shabbos and a Chag Kasher v'Sameach.
Thank you. You too. We see good times.
Amen. There he is, Rabbi Dr. Natan Slifkin in Israel. The zoo rabbi, if you will. That's how we always knew him. But the founder of the museum and the author of The Lions of Zion and so many other books. He is absolutely amazing. Check it all out.